Right on. Well, welcome back to The Upside with Eli. I am joined today with Brandon Murphy, CPA extraordinaire. Welcome back, Brandon.
You betcha. Thanks for having me.
You survived tax season?
Yeah, we made it through all right. Everything got filed on time, so
Everything. Except for the people that were late sending you stuff.
Yeah, waiting on a couple. Yeah,
Yeah.
I shouldn't say everything that was my responsibility. Was filed
Everything
on.
that that was not your fault to not have done on time was done on time. That's good. And then, June 15th, obviously, coming up. You got a lot to do for then, or not too bad?
No, not too bad, actually. Usually, anyone self-employed, I try to just get it filed by April 30th if we have all the information.
They need to pay the taxes by then anyway, so might as well just get it all done.
Yeah, I might as well just get it done right and submit it at that point.
Cool. Today we are talking all about one of my favorite topics of excess wealth. What do you do when you've got way more money than you need to retire on? Which is always a fun conversation to have with clients, and what they have told us before is they really like that term excess wealth. It's a good sounding term. So we want to chat today about, kind of some of the stuff that you're doing for clients and kind of what you're seeing. Just all about, what happens when you've got more money. You've built that drawdown structure. People know they have more than enough money and kind of what they're doing with it. So we've got kind of our top 7 list here that we've kind of put together. Let's just jump into it. So, number 1, helping children financially, down payments, debt payoff, business capital. What are you seeing people doing to help their kids?
Yeah, I find this is probably the most common one that we see is we build out that retirement projection and we show them the numbers and say, okay, you can spend X number of dollars and you need that much money to spend that much, but you've got this excess wealth, this excess capital. So now let's start talking about what we want to do with it, whether it's real estate, whether it's business, or a lot of the time it's invested assets. And for a lot of people, they've got kids, they got grandkids. So how do we start helping them out and supporting them? Because what we don't want to see happen is someone's 80, 90 years old and they've built up this capital and now it's just been growing for the last 20, 30 years in retirement. When they're 80 or 90, their kids are now, they could be 50, 60 years old. They may not
70 even, yeah.
Yeah, maybe they don't need that money anymore. Maybe they built up their business. Maybe they've already got their house. They got their mortgage paid off. The grandkids' RESPs are funded. So I've kind of just knocked on a few of the potential options there. But that's usually where it starts out, is just small things like your son or daughter is buying a house. They need help with the down payment. Let's help them out in that aspect so they don't have to save for 3 or 4 more years to support the down payment.
Yeah.
Maybe you've got grandkids, rather than your kids having to make those contributions to the RESP. Maybe you just fund it as soon as the kids are born. Sometimes it makes sense to do that and actually forego some of the government grants, because that compound growth of that $50,000 contribution in the year of birth over an 18-year period can outweigh kind of dollar cost averaging in over multiple years.
Sure.
Funding RESPs is a good one. And then I think we brought up businesses as well. So child wants to start a business, her grandkid wants to start a business, and they need some capital to get that going. Again, you can just accelerate that process if you've got the capital there to help them out, whether it's through a loan or whether it's just a gift or whether you become a shareholder in the business. That might mean they can start the business 3 or 5 years sooner rather than having to save up or go to the bank and get a loan for that matter.
Sure. Yeah, and I think, one of the things that we kind of look at is at what stage are they at in retirement, right? If you're just entering retirement, you've got more than enough money versus if you're at, kind of the tail end, you're helping kids versus grandkids and skipping generations and that type of thing. But I think we're seeing way more frequently now parents helping their kids with down payments, right? It's looking at like cost of living is going up and up and up and everything's more expensive. And kids need help in their 20s and 30s, not their 50s and 60s. By the time you reach your 60s, you should be pretty well set, or at least you don't need as much assistance. Some people obviously do, but your kids really need the most help throughout their 20s and 30s when they're young. They're trying to graduate, school, whether they have that debt or not. They're typically, it's a little harder to find work. You maybe not paid, as much as you need to be. Having that extra capital to pay off some of that debt or be able to put a down payment on a house makes a massive difference to somebody that age versus somebody who's 60 years old.
Yeah, totally. It's good to support that when they need the money, and if you can pay down whether it's student loans or help them with a down payment, that's when we really see generational wealth being built because now you're giving lump sums of money to someone that's in their 20s or 30s that has 60, 70 years of compound growth ahead of them. And then that gives them the opportunity to do the same thing with their kids.
Totally. And, we'll start to see a lot of parents too that dump money to max out their kids' TFSA accounts. They dump money in to max out their kids' FHSA accounts, right? If you've got a pool of capital, it's just sitting in a non-registered investment account. If you're going to pass that money to the kids anyways, you might as well jumpstart all that for them because like you say, that the compounding on that, and it's just a more efficient use of capital because you're not having to pay tax on the growth versus keeping it, kind of in your own hands.
Yeah, exactly. Sprinkle it out throughout the family, gift that money, and it's in a tax sheltered vehicle.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, that's kind of helping children. In terms of grandchildren, which is another fun one, number 2 on this list here. We start to see people that are kind of skipping generations and saying, "Listen, my kids are set." And when I say kids, I mean these is usually people in like their 50s and 60s. But I don't care about them anymore. I want to help and be remembered by my grandkids. I guess what are some of the most common ways that you're seeing people maybe in their 70s or 80s that are actually helping their grandkids now, and maybe they're younger too?
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of it is very similar to the ways that you would help your kids. So potentially it's just loading up their TFSAs if they're 18, TFSA, FHSA, RESPs. Even if the RESPs aren't built up all that much when they're going to school, it just means you can gift them cash to help them get through school, get their education done. And then they're graduating, grandkids are graduating, and they've got no student loans. They don't have that stress, and then they can just accelerate their investment horizon.
Yeah, absolutely. And you touched on it before about RESPs in terms of depositing in. I mean, there's a couple of ways that you can do it. Obviously, you can, for people listening, you can do a lump sum drop in, right? So day one, when the child's first born, you could put in $50,000. That's the lifetime maximum, but you're only going to, get $500 worth of grants for that one contribution. So you could put in like 16,000, year one, and then $2,500 a year for the next, 14 years to max out the grants, or you could do it all as a lump sum, or you could do both, right? You can gift the money, have it, kind of growing and invested under the kids. There's certain types of interest for accounts that you can utilize for that, or formalized trust accounts. And then also, kind of get that grant money along the way. So there's a few different strategies that you can, certainly utilize depending on how much you actually have in capital to pass on.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes I've had that conversation with people and they're like, we want to optimize this completely. And it's like, do that. I think it's like 16,500, like you said, in the first year, and then the 2,500 thereafter. Have the rest invested somewhere else, and then just top it up every year because those grants, it's free government money, so take advantage of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the idea of taking advantage of every opportunity you possibly can to give your kids or grandkids a leg up, right? It makes sense. Cool. Number 3 on this list, vacation or recreational properties. Everybody loves that family member with the lake house, the ski chalet, the ranch. Those are always, fun times, good memories. What are you seeing in terms of kind of the benefits or kind of where people are getting a lot of value out of actually investing in that kind of stuff? And it might not be a property they keep forever, but having that kind of thing in the family.
Yeah, I think there's a couple sides. One is you just get the fun stuff, right? It's like get the house and then go get the wake boat and take the family, take the kids, the grandkids out wake boating. But then there's just the family aspect to it. I see families where they buy a vacation property. Maybe it's in a lake somewhere in Alberta, or it's out in Kelowna, or maybe it's far away where everyone's flying out to in the winter. So you're either looking at a summer property or a winter property. It's just a good opportunity to bring everyone together once a year where you have a good family dynamic and bring the family together. And it's just not a huge expense for everyone else. Like you buy the property, you have an opportunity to keep it in the family as well and pass that down if your kids want to keep the property. But outside of that, during your lifetime, it's just it's a good place for everyone to meet up and share some memories.
Yeah. And are you seeing a particular age that people are more likely to buy that type of thing than others?
Particular age? That's a good question. I think it probably kicks off when when there starts to be grandkids in the picture, because now it's like that's usually the point where people are like they don't want to go backpacking in Europe anymore. They're not bouncing around the States. They're not doing the Vegas trips anymore. They're like, I just want to go somewhere for 2 weeks with my kids where my family is, where we can cook food and just go on the lake or whatever that looks like. So yeah, kind of around that age when you start to see grandkids in the picture, whether that's kind of 50, 60, even 70 years old.
Totally. And usually it's because your kids are at that age where they don't have any money to do that kind of stuff. And you're fighting for time, to spend time with your grandkids. So it's a great excuse to be like, hey, we've got this property. Why don't you come bring them out for the summer? Especially when grandkids are young, because they're not in school, right? You can kind of get them out there. And then, like you said, there's a big differences between if you get that ski chalet versus in Canada, most of us really like cabins, cottages, depending on what province and that you're in. But those are just great memories of just like being outside. And I never grew up with that, but I always loved going to friends' places, and I that's the full intention of what we want to do long term. And it's crazy, going down to Montana and seeing the kind of places there. And a lot of our clients that have places like in Muskoka and that, there's some pretty outrageous shacks that we see that are pretty cool.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Is that in your horizon for the kids?
Horizon?
Yeah, in the future, like vacation property
for us.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's the plan. Once they're a little older, it's tough to. I think it's tough to drag a 6-month-old, kind of around, and it's nice to have all of your stuff, kind of in one place should be set up. But by the time the kids are like 5, 6, 7 years old, in my opinion, that's kind of the ideal time to be just getting away, and especially summer vacations.
Yeah, that's right. They're in school. You take them out in the summer, and that's a place for them to go. And I find like once they're like 5, 6, 7 years old, that's when they start retaining those memories too. And they'll be older. They'll be in their 20s, and you guys will still be talking about the property in the summer.
Oh yeah, exactly. And we have clients like you mentioned that live in Calgary and they fly out to Ontario just because there's way better lakes there. The weather's way warmer, and it's just kind of easier nowadays. So. So just I kind of going through this list again of what we see as the most common ways to kind of share wealth or kind of manage family from a wealth standpoint. Number 4 is charitable giving. So things like donor advised funds, direct donations. What are you kind of seeing these days? What trends are you finding with people?
Yeah, charitable giving is kind of vastly different for everyone. Sometimes it's well in the picture, and it's like, yes, we want a lump sum money here. Outside of that, it's like, no, we want to make sure everything goes to the family. And a lot of that is just the dynamic, the situation. Are you married? Do you have kids? Typically, people that are married with kids, they want everything to go to their spouse, and then they want the rest to go to their kids or grandkids. How I always frame the picture for my clients when we're looking at kind of multiple layers or excess wealth is I say foundation, family, philanthropy. So foundation is like, what do you need? That's your retirement capital. That's your spending. Kind of, are you going to buy a property or a car?
Sure.
And then it's family, like those first couple things we talked about. And then we start looking at philanthropy. So is there excess capital above and beyond that we want to start looking at giving to charities? And this is where tax efficiency can really come into play as well. It can be as simple as we're just going to give a couple $1,000s to the local food bank every year, or an organization that they've always supported. That can be just a really simple giving strategy. And I was just working on a financial plan for someone that wanted to just basically give some cash every year, and they wanted to figure out like, okay, if I have this much investment income, how do I just offset that investment income with a donation tax credit? And that's kind of a simple benefit that you can get from it. Then the next layer we would look at is giving shares. For those of you that don't know, if you donate securities, fund units, ETFs, you can get the donation tax credit at the fair market value that you donate the security at, but you don't have to report the capital gain, taxable capital gain.
Yeah, so which is huge.
Yeah, so you get like kind of a double benefit out of that basically. And especially if it's money that you're not planning to use, you're not planning to give to anyone else, maybe you can find an organization that'll accept the securities.
Yeah.
Then the next layer, we could look at larger donations. And this is typically going to happen if we have some sort of liquidity event coming up. Maybe there's some stock options that got cashed in, or maybe they sold a rental property in 1 year. So we're going to see a spike in taxable income. And they know that philanthropy and charitable giving is in their horizon, but maybe they don't want to give 100,000 or 500,000 to one charity in one instance. So that's when we start looking at things like donor advised funds or foundations, where you can allocate one donation in 1 year. You can offset a lot of your taxable capital gain or whatever that liquidity event was, effectively eliminating the tax.
Yep.
And then you can decide each year on how you want to allocate those donations out.
Totally. Yeah, no, those are all great points. I think the other one too is a lot of people don't realize that when you have money inside of a corporation, and a lot of people will, they'll have money in their holdco or just an old opco that's just kind of sitting around, or especially with professional corporations. And when you donate some of those shares, you're also generating CDA credits, right? When you're triggering it, so you get the taxable benefit plus you're generating other credits and things like that. So there's definitely some neat areas for people who you don't donate to charity just for the tax benefits. But if you're already somebody who is philanthropic and donating money, there are a lot of subsidiary tax benefits and tax efficient ways to do that, where you get to save tax, the charity gets even more money, and the only person who loses is CRA. So in my opinion, everybody wins.
Yeah, and how I frame it, and it's a little bit I don't know, it's a little bit brash, I suppose, but it's like, if you're going to pay tax every year and you want to be charitable, you could just pay the tax and send it to CRA and have them figure out where they're going to allocate it. Because at the end of the day, that's also going to go to some charities and organizations. Or do you want to decide what charity you want to support and then net out that tax that you'd otherwise pay?
Fair enough. That is one way to look at it. Cool. Next on the list, travel and experiences. So yeah, I'm noticing this, and I think there's certain families who do this really, really well, and certain families who don't do it as well. And I feel like a lot of times they do it once, and I don't know why families don't do it more often, because we'll see ones that do it all the time, and it's like, great. Those are fantastic memories of grandparents taking their whole extended families on a trip, renting a huge house somewhere, doing these types of things. There's really cool experiences that we'll see people do. I just don't know if people don't want to plan for it or what, but I am definitely seeing an uptick in travel and kind of experiences. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I have to agree. Like, I don't see it done regularly per se, but I've met with some clients here recently. They don't have any kids themselves, but they got like nieces and nephews or siblings, right? And we ran out the projection. I was like, you've got this excess capital. Like, here's how much more you could spend each year. They're like, well, that's fantastic. I'm gonna take my niece or my nephew on a trip, or my sister and their kids, whatever that looks like. And now that's part of the plan, is to do those vacations, spend that extra, whether it's $15,000, $20,000 a year, to take a family on their trip. Because, and then what that does is, like, the younger people in the family, they want to be able to save and invest. But when you're young, you also want to travel, let's be honest.
Yeah.
So if you can kind of balance that out and provide them that opportunity, then it's great. So yeah, I hope, definitely had those conversations, and I hope to see it kind of executed going forward.
Yeah, and we'll see a lot of different things, right? Like, I remember one client, they had a villa in Italy that, they were just like, we're not using this thing. I was like, why don't you guys take the family there? And it was an older woman, I think she was in her 80s, and she liked to go back there and stuff like that. It was always her dream to take the kids there. She just never thought she had the money, right? And so when we built her plan and actually built her drawdown structure, it was like she had way more than enough money she needed to be able to do that. And she's like, I could, she was blown away that she could do that once. I'm like, no, you could literally do this every year for the next decade and still have enough money to kind of live on. And so sometimes it's the psychological switch of just going through this process of people to realize, no, you can afford to do that. Like, go do that. Go make those memories. You don't necessarily know what's going to happen a year from now. So, like, go do it instead of, kind of putting things off. But it's just really neat to see a lot of people think about doing these things. Just until you put pen to paper and actually build all these plans, they don't realize that they could absolutely do it, and they could do it with ease. Yeah,
exactly. And sometimes people just need, like, that unbiased party to sit in front of them and just show them the numbers, show them, like, here's how much you could actually spend on those trips. And they're like, oh, okay. Because, yeah, it's tough to go from that mindset of you're just saving and accumulating for 40, 50 years. And now it's like, oh, now it's time to spend. And it's a tough switch to pull, especially if you cold turkey retire. And now it's like, oh, I got to spend this, take trips, spend that money on other people. But yeah, sometimes, like you said, you provide that perspective, and then they're like, okay, sweet, let's go for it.
Exactly. Number 6, collectibles and passion assets, art, watches, classic cars, wine. Yeah, what do you see in there?
Yeah, that's niche. I don't see too much of this, honestly. I find a lot of the people I work with are very they're going for experiences like the trips or buy the vacation property where the family can go stay in that. But yeah, I'm sure there's folks that are into the artwork, into the watches, and those are also things that are kind of cool artifacts that you can pass down to your kids and your grandkids for them to enjoy. What about yourself? Are you seeing any?
I mean,
anything
classic
big?
cars is always a big one. Yeah, I've definitely convinced a lot of clients, and Nathan always makes fun of me for it, but I've definitely convinced a lot of clients to buy nice cars. And it's usually one spouse that wants to buy a nice car, and the other one's like, I don't know if we should do that. I don't know if we can afford that. And then I build the plans like, no, you can clearly afford to go buy that Porsche. Go buy that Porsche. Like that's your dream thing. So like in the last like 2 years, I think we've had 4 clients go buy like either vintage or like very nice Porsches. Who knows if they'll keep them for a long time, but that was always a dream, and now they own them. And their wives might not be thrilled. I'm just joking. They're all fine with it.
It's like if Eli says it's okay, then we can do it.
That's their argument. But like you'll see people with like 10, 12, 15 million dollars of assets or 20 million dollars of assets, and they want to buy a $300,000 car. And there's just so much guilt around that. So we build a plan. I'm like, it's not even going to have a material impact on your overall retirement to go do that. And a lot of those cars actually appreciate in value, especially for certain types of like vintage vehicles and that. So yeah, I definitely see that. Yeah, we don't see a lot of like wine investment. I know somebody commented on some videos recently. There's a lot of places around the world where if you invest in Scotch, the growth on it is actually tax free. They don't have tax, like in Scotland, for example, I believe it is. And there's lots of places around the world where like, yeah, there's no tax on the appreciation of Scotch.
Oh, interesting.
Canada, unfortunately, of course, Canada's going to tax you on it because we tax everything. But yeah, they'll still tax you on that. But yeah, there's, you see some of these alternative asset classes, but they're, again, I don't know if people are necessarily doing it just for the money. There's some prestige and different things around it. And I would say art, especially like Canadian cultural art or certain types of art that they have that they either like and want to continue to own, or they buy it because they really like it and they know there's huge tax benefits by donating that art down the road to like the Glenbow or Esker or some of these galleries. And I'm just talking about the ones in Calgary, but there's a lot of tax benefits to art donation, especially Canadian cultural art too. So those are some neat ones. Don't come across as much, but for a certain client, yeah, those we definitely see those art investments.
Yeah, that's really interesting. We're gonna have someone reaching out now looking for a Scotch-based portfolio.
Yeah, well, it's funny because whenever people comment that, I always get so many likes. People are like, "Oh my god, I didn't know that was true." It's not true. it's tax free, but that's the internet for you.
Yeah, maybe if you move to Scotland, then you're covered.
Yeah, cool. And then number 7, I think maybe not as, I shouldn't say not as fun, a really important topic that we run into a lot because we have a lot of clients who either have kids or grandchildren with disabilities. Right, this is something that just as a practice we've just become kind of known for in terms of helping people kind of through those types of transitions. So this is things like maximizing RDSPs, Henson Trust, lifetime kind of care planning. And we're seeing it just as much with parents as with grandparents. And recently we've taken on a number of clients where the grandparents is raising the grandkids because the parents are kind of out of the picture. And there's people with, either special needs or disabilities or just, whatever it be, right? They qualify for that disability tax credit. So what are some things that you're seeing on that front and type of planning that you're doing there?
Yeah, for sure. It's obviously a very important thing, and I find something like an RDSP is missed so much out there. Like there's a lot of folks that probably are eligible for an RDSP because they're eligible for the disability tax credit, and they don't realize what the benefits are through the grants that you can get in the RDSP. So that's kind of the simplest one where you can fund an RDSP for your kids or for your grandkids, and then they get the multiplication of the grants. And RDSP is generally used for retirement. It's to fund their retirement when they're 50, 60 years old. And so if you start an RDSP for a grandchild that's 5 years old, well, now we're talking about 50 years of growth in that account, plus the grants. That's kind of the simple, straightforward type of giving we'll see.
Yeah.
And
And
then,
a lot of times parents might not have the money because they're dealing with a child with, more higher expenses. And so if grandparents can come in and help fund some of that, I mean, if anybody can fund it, obviously it's just going to be super beneficial.
Yeah, exactly. You're just supporting their future in the best way that you can. And then outside of that, then we start potentially looking at trust structures, disability trusts, Henson trusts. Like we were just chatting before this, like the broad term is disability trusts, or Henson trusts are disability trusts, but not all disability trusts are Henson trusts. Henson Trust, the benefit you get out of this is you can still make those contributions. You can get the grants and the tax deferred growth in the account. But what it protects you against is receiving other government benefits. So a normal trust, or if you have just like a non-registered account in a kid's name, it's going to generate interest, dividend income, capital gains. That's going to be reported on their tax return as income. If you have it arranged in a Henson Trust, then they don't need to report that income when they're looking for eligibility of other government programs, whether it be provincial or federal disability programs. So you get the benefit there of you can still grow the money within the trust, but they can still receive their government benefits.
Yeah, and the main one on that one, as you mentioned, it's the protection of losing your provincial benefits, because it's an absolute discretionary trust and it's not directly managed by the individual who is inheriting all those funds, right? It doesn't qualify for the same asset test. So just like principal residents are exempt, RDSPs are exempt, which you mentioned, and then Henson trusts are exempt from provincial benefit calculations. So that's the whole benefit, and it blows me away the number of time we've seen people that reach out to us after somebody's passed away, and they go, "Hey, I'm going to lose all of my provincial benefits," or I've got a niece or a nephew that's going to lose that. Can we set up this Henson trust? And the answer is generally no. Like, it's too late. It had to be set up as a testamentary trust when the individual passed away, or while they were still living. Usually we'll see it as a testamentary style trust. And so it's too late at that point. So you need to have that as part of your will. And that's why, it's kind of part of this planning is we're looking at, support of children or grandchildren or anybody with a disability. It's let's fund the RDSP. You can put in up to $200,000. Right, you can get them a principal residence. That's also exempt, but beyond that, everything should be funneled, into a Henson trust so that they still qualify for all those government benefits and they have all that to support them. And it's crazy because when you actually look at the value to those government benefits over somebody's lifetime, I mean, that could be into the millions of dollars, right? So if somebody gets an inheritance, it's crazy to think of. They might get an inheritance of $500,000 and they're actually worse off having received that than if they didn't receive that inheritance. So there's only so much you can do after the fact, right? You could buy a principal residence, but that's usually more expensive than getting subsidized housing, right? You can dump money into an RDSP, but you're only limited to $200,000. So looking at that planning ahead of time is huge. And then just all the other additional pieces around like support and making sure that there is enough money to actually provide for the care and everything else that person needs, be it somebody living with them or support or all that kind of stuff as well. It's not cheap.
Yeah, exactly. And it's important to do that planning early. And I guess, question back to you is like, you mentioned having the testamentary trust set up in the will to fund like a Henson trust. When is the best time to set up a Henson trust if someone in the family has a disability?
Yeah, right when you write your will, right? As soon as they qualify for that as soon as they qualify for government benefits, right? That should be part of the will, right? That you're going to establish that trust in it. It's just a basic, you just add a basic codicil or amendment to it to add that in there. Or if you don't have a will, just get it in there because you can't do it after the fact.
Right. So the will trigger the trust, and then assets can flow.
Assets flow into that instead of directly to a beneficiary, and then it's all covered. And you may have a trustee that you name specifically on that trust, or a lot of times we'll use a corporate trustee, right? Because you might not want to burden somebody with the responsibility of having to deal with that, kind of indefinitely. Or you might have a family member and a corporate trustee that work jointly on it, so you still have somebody who knows the individual and is a part of that process. But it's nice to have somebody else managing the day-to-day on that, so you're not putting all that onus on another sibling, for example.
Yeah, it can be worth it to pay someone sometimes rather than putting that burden on someone else to manage the assets and have those meetings and everything.
Totally. Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, so those are, I guess, our what we came up with is the top 7 things that we see people doing with, kind of excess wealth. Was there anything else you could think of to add to that list? I'm sure we could think of more, but
Yeah,
any major ones?
when you get caught in collectible and passion assets, you could really go. Yeah, I know we always ask clients if planes are in the future, and it's like, oh, maybe you retire, and now's the time to get the pilot's license and buy the plane, and that's a whole new adventure.
I'm always surprised at that. Yeah, it seems like people when they retire, they don't have interest in planes. It's usually people that didn't have that or that had them before. Now they're finally like spending more time flying. But yeah, we definitely have a few clients with some pretty cool planes, which always surprised me. And then we had one a couple years ago. We helped them buy a couple of helicopters. Those were pretty cool.
Oh yeah, neat.
Yeah,
yeah, that'd be fun. I mean, yeah, take the family, throw them on the plane, and take that out to Ontario.
Absolutely. Maybe not the single engine Cessna.
Yeah.
You might want something a little longer distance, but
yeah, you don't want to have to throw an oxygen mask on to get over there.
yeah, you hit a big wind and all of a sudden it quadruples the length of your flight. But no, I think at the end of the day, I mean, our big thing is always you don't know what that excess wealth or what you're kind of capable of being able to do until you actually sit down and map out that full drawdown structure, putting your goals down on paper and building out kind of what we build for people. And so it's always really interesting that when you do, you just put everything into perspective. And then based on the individual's values, they can decide, well, what's actually important to you, right? And especially for people who are high net worth, ultra high net worth, when you look at, okay, like there's only so many things you can spend money on. And if you're going to live for another 30 plus years, all of that future growth, if you're only spending X, but you could be spending Y, right? All of a sudden those numbers get really, really, really big over a 30-year compound period. So it's like, somebody's going to spend this money at some point. Is it you? Is it going to charity? Your kid's going to spend it. Somebody's going to spend it at some point, or the government's going to get a decent chunk. But either way, somebody's spending the money. So why not sit down and figure out, how you want that actually spent?
Yeah, what's the best way to sprinkle it throughout the family tax efficiently? And I find 9 times out of 10 we sit down and we present like, here's what you thought you could spend in retirement. Here's what you can actually spend. They're like, oh, I'm not going to spend all that. So, and then that just leaves a really cool conversation because then they call me, say that happens one week, they call me on Monday and it's like, yeah, we had a really cool conversation Sunday night dinner and how do we work this into the plan? How do we give some money here? Can we take the family trip this year? And then it just kind of, it's a domino effect from there.
Yeah, that's the fun stuff. That's the way life is supposed to be, in my opinion.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Right on. Okay, well, thanks for joining me again. If you want to reach out to Murph, you can reach him through the website under Book a Meeting, and he will gladly have a chat with you.
We'll jump on the phone.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.